Hi, today we are going to explore ecosystems. What is an ecosystem? An ecosystem is a biological environment consisting of all organisms living in a particular area, as well as the non-living physical components of the environment with which the organisms interact, such as air, soil, water, and sunlight. Population. Population is all the organisms that both belong to the same species and live in the same geographical area. For example, the human population is near 7 billion people today. The entire human race is one population. The bald eagle, which has been noticed of endangered species in North America, has an estimated population of 70,000 today. The population of the bald eagles is a separate population because it is a different species. A community. A community is a group of interacting species sharing a populated environment. This includes all living and non-living organisms in an environment. For example, all animals and people are part of a community, and the grass and dirt in which we live amongst is also part of a community. Interactions. Organisms interact in many different ways. They can be beneficial and not beneficial to other organisms. They can benefit by providing shelter, food, and safety. For example, beaver dams to the picture towards the right are can benefit humans. They decrease damaging floods, recharge drinking water aquifers, remove pollutants from surface and groundwater. They decrease erosion and protect against droughts. They also benefit by creating vital habitats, produce food for fish and other animals, maintain stream and river flow, and support biodiversity, including 43% of the endangered species today. However, for example, in the picture to the right, it is representing a parasite. These can be non-beneficial to organisms in the environment. The parasite lives off of the frog and can stay on the frog for as many years as it wants in order to live. It lives off the blood of the frog and can lead to long-term death for the frog. Other non-beneficial interactions amongst organisms include the hunting of predators on its prey, or two predators competing for the same prey. Biotic factors. Biotic components are the living things that shape our ecosystems. They are any living component that affects another organism. Such things include animals which consume the organism in question and the living food that the organisms consume. Some examples of biotic factors are plants, animals, fungi, protista, and bacteria. The picture to the right shows a tiger, which is a biotic factor, and it's resting on a tree which has fungi on it, which represents some of the other biotic factors that we've been talking about. Non-living in addition to biotic factors, there are also abiotic factors, which are non-living chemical and physical factors in the environment. Some examples of abiotic factors are, well, let's take this picture to the left. The mountain um, is an example of an abiotic factor. Some environmental abiotic factors are things like a pond, lake, ocean, desert. Some weather factors are temperature, cloud cover, rain, snow, hurricanes, etc. The fact is that these abiotic factors, which are non-living organisms, have a major impact and affect all living organisms amongst an ecosystem and environment. What is a food chain? In a food chain we have, or what is a food chain? A food chain is a cycle of relationships amongst abiotic and biotic factors in an ecosystem. It shows how each living thing gets its food. Each food chain starts with the sun, which produces solar energy for the plant to grow and produce food for the next animal in the food chain. In the picture to the right, for example, is a deer. The deer needs plants in order to survive. At the end of the food chain is usually an animal or a top carnivore. This animal needs a deer in order to get its food. So we start with the sun, then plants, then animal, then that eats plants to survive, then usually ends with the animal that hunts other animals to survive. In a food chain, we have consumers, which are animals that cannot make their own food, so they must eat plants or other animals. There are three different types of consumers. The first is the herbivore, which eats only plants. The second is the omnivore, which eats plants and animals. And the third is the carnivore, which eats other animals to survive. In the top picture, we have a giraffe, which is a herbivore eating the plants that are necessary for its survival. In the middle picture, we are showing a lion, which is a carnivore, which hunts other animals that is key to survival. And in the third photo, we have a pig, which is an omnivore because a pig eats both plants and animals. Plants are called producers because they are able to use light energy from the sun to produce food and from carbon dioxide and water. The picture to the right shows a picture of the plant, which is a prime example of a producer. Then there are decomposers, which are bacteria and fungi, and which feed on the decaying matter. These decomposers speed up the decaying process that release mineral salts back into the food chain for absorption by plants as nutrients. The picture to the right shows fungi decaying on a dead tree to speed up the decaying process so it can release mineral salts back into the food chain for plants as nutrients. A food web is much more complex than a food chain. It is also more accurate than a food chain. A food web is sometimes defined as several food chains linked together. A food web shows all feeding relationships between organisms living in an ecosystem. The main points that distinguishes food webs from food chains is the fact that organisms depend on more than one species for food. Here is an example of what a food web may look like and look like in a region like the Great Lakes region, for example. The owl hunts on rabbits, squirrels, and smaller birds. The squirrel feeds off the trees and acorns and stuff, and then the fox and eagle also hunt the squirrel. The fox hunts on insects, rabbits, and mice. The mice hunts insects, which the insects live off the grass and trees. As you can see, it is an ongoing relationship amongst many organisms with other organisms. You can see that some animals compete for the same organism, but yet still can survive by altering its prey and hunting other animals. Each organism in a food chain web depend on more than one other species for food. Environmental changes have a major impact role on an ecosystem. There can be land use change, which is usually enforced by humans, such as logging down trees in a forest for resources, and it affects many of the animals that live in the forest to find a new ecosystem to live in. Storms such as the tornado in the picture to the right can destroy habitats and ecosystems in just seconds, and it forces animals to find a new way to survive and adapt to a new ecosystem. As population grows for one species, it sometimes forces out another species in an ecosystem because all the new species can no longer compete for food that overpopulated by other species. Other examples of environmental changes are species behavior and the evolution of species. This just means an animal or organism sometimes have to adapt to the changes in which its species is happening and have to find new ways or a new ecosystem to function in. The Great Lakes region has many different types of ecosystems. There are the Great Lakes for one. Other include sand dunes, coastal marshes, rocky shorelines, lake plain prairies, and savannas, and one of the biggest one amongst this region are forests. The Great Lakes region experiences 4 separate seasons: summer, fall, spring, and winter, which makes an animal have to adapt to the fast changes that their ecosystem is occurring. One of the great benefits of the Great Lakes region is the fantastic beaches. Like the picture of Holland Beach to the right, a beach includes many different organisms and they must interact with humans because humans use these beaches so often in the spring and summer. Now I am going to issue an assignment. All of you are going to make your own food web. The guidelines to the assignment are: it is worth 10 points of your grade, it must consist of at least 10 different organisms, and it must be accurate. Be creative and have fun with this assignment.